He was naked, covered in chocolate powder, and trapped in his crush's bathroom, and somehow that disaster became the best thing that ever happened to him. This is the story of how Kaito went from hiding in closets to being unable to hide his feelings anymore, all because of one very persistent, very attractive fake boyfriend named Ren. Smash that like button, subscribe for the full spicy story, and comment your favorite trope. Are you team fake dating or team forced proximity? The universe had it out for Kaito today. First, his alarm didn't go off. Then he'd spilled coffee down his only clean shirt. And now, his so-called friends had cornered him outside the library with that gleam in their eyes that meant trouble. Come on, Kaito. She's perfect for you. Yuki insisted, blocking his escape route with her arms spread wide. I don't need to be set up, Kaito protested, clutching his bag like a shield. I'm fine being single. You've been fine being single for 2 years, Takashi chimed in from behind, cutting off his other exit. That's not fine. That's tragic. Kaito's eye twitched. Why did his friends think his love life, or lack thereof, was their personal project? Sure, he was quiet. Maybe a little awkward. But that didn't mean he needed their help finding. She's waiting at the cafe right now, Yuki said, pulling out her phone with a triumphant smile. I'll text her you're on your way. Oh hell no. In a burst of panic-fueled adrenaline, Kaito feinted left, then bolted right, slipping past Takashi's grabbing hands. Behind him, he heard their shouts of surprise, then the thundering of footsteps. They were actually chasing him. His friends were actually chasing him through campus like some kind of demented rom-com. Kaito's lungs burned as he rounded the corner of the science building, his sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. He could hear them gaining on him. Takashi had been on the track team, damn him, and desperation clawed at his throat. There. An open door. Without thinking, Kaito dove inside and pressed himself against the wall, heart hammering so hard he was sure it would give away his position. He held his breath as footsteps pounded past, Yuki's voice calling his name fading down the hallway. Safe. Kaito slumped against the door, allowing himself a shaky exhale. That was way too close. He'd hide here for a few minutes, let them give up, and then... What the hell? The voice came from deeper in the room and Kaito's blood turned to ice. This wasn't an empty classroom. This was someone's dorm room. And not just anyone's room. As Kaito's eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through half-closed blinds, he recognized the pristine space. Minimalist furniture, a shelf of neatly organized textbooks, a punching bag in the corner, and on the wall, a photography award with a name that made his stomach drop. Ren Takahashi. No. I asked what the hell you're doing in my room. Kaito spun toward the voice and found himself face to face with the man himself, emerging from what must be the bathroom, a towel slung around his neck and his dark hair still damp. Ren Takahashi, the senior every underclassman talked about in hushed, reverent tones. Brilliant photographer. Physics major. Devastatingly handsome in that effortless way that made Kaito's mouth go dry every time he saw him across campus. The same Ren Takahashi that Kaito had been nursing a hopeless crush on for the past 6 months. This could not be happening. Wrong room. Kaito squeaked, spinning back toward the door. Sorry? I'll just... He reached for the handle, but in his panic, his elbow caught the edge of a shelf mounted beside the door. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion, the shelf tilting, containers tumbling, and then... Splash. Something cold, thick, and decidedly sticky cascaded over Kaito's head and shoulders, drenching him completely. The smell hit him a second later, artificial chocolate and protein powder. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Ren's voice, carefully neutral, that was a week's worth of protein shake mix. Kaito wanted to die. Right there. Just cease to exist. The mixture was everywhere, in his hair, soaking through his shirt, dripping down his face. He could feel it seeping through to his skin, sticky and cold and absolutely mortifying. I'll pay you back, Kaito managed, not daring to look at Ren. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. You're dripping on my floor. Right. Yes. I'll just... Kaito looked down at himself and realized the full extent of the disaster. His white shirt was completely transparent now, clinging to his skin. His jeans were soaked through. He was tracking chocolate powder across Ren's pristine floor with every movement. He couldn't walk back to his dorm like this. People would stare. His friends might still be out there. And the mixture was already starting to feel uncomfortable, the powder mixing with his sweat and creating an itchy paste against his skin. Bathroom's there, Ren said, pointing. You should clean up. Kaito nodded mutely and shuffled toward the bathroom, acutely aware of the squelching sounds his shoes made. Once inside, he locked the door and stared at his reflection in horror. He looked like he'd lost a fight with a chocolate factory. There was no saving his clothes, they were completely saturated. And he couldn't exactly walk out there dripping protein shake all over Ren's room. Which meant Kaito's face burned as he realized what he had to do. With trembling fingers, he peeled off his shirt, then his jeans, then everything else, wrapping himself in the largest towel he could find. He'd have to ask Ren if he could borrow something to wear. Just long enough to get back to his own dorm. Then he'd never, ever have to face this humiliation again. He was psyching himself up to open the door when he heard it, the main door to the room opening, then closing. Footsteps. Voices. Just need to grab something. Won't take a minute. That was Ren's voice. And someone was with him. Panic seized Kaito's chest. He couldn't walk out there in just a towel, not with someone else present. He'd have to wait until they left. Yes. He'd just hide in here until the bathroom door swung open. Kaito had forgotten to lock it after all. And there stood Ren, his expression shifting from surprise to shock as he took in the sight. Kaito, naked except for a towel that had slipped dangerously low on his hips, chocolate powder still dusting his damp hair, eyes wide as a cornered rabbit. 4-3 eternal heartbeats, neither of them moved. Then Ren's lips curved into the smallest, most devastating smile Kaito had ever seen. Well, Ren said softly, his dark eyes gleaming with something Kaito couldn't quite name. This is interesting. Kaito was going to combust. Spontaneously ignite right there in Ren Takahashi's bathroom, naked except for a precariously positioned towel, while his longtime crush stared at him with that infuriating almost smile playing at his lips. I can explain, Kaito blurted, which was a lie because he absolutely could not explain this in any way that didn't make him sound like a complete lunatic. I'm listening, Ren said, leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed. He made no move to leave, and Kaito realized with creeping horror that the someone else he'd heard must have already gone. They were alone. He was practically naked. And Ren was looking at him like he was the most entertaining thing that had happened all week. My friends were chasing me, Kaito started, then immediately regretted it because that sounded even worse out loud. Not like in a dangerous way. They were trying to set me up on a blind date and I didn't want to go, so I ran and I needed to hide and your door was open. My door is never open. Barely open like a crack, and I didn't know it was your room, I swear. I just needed somewhere to catch my breath and then I was going to leave, but then you came out and I panicked and hit the shelf and... He gestured helplessly at his towel-clad state. Here we are. Ren studied him for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then, to Kaito's absolute shock, he laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but something genuine and warm that completely transformed his usually stoic face. Here we are, Ren echoed, shaking his head. You know, when I woke up this morning, find a naked stranger in my bathroom wasn't on my agenda. I am so sorry. Relax. I'm not going to report you for breaking and entering. Ren pushed off the doorframe and walked to his closet, pulling out sweatpants and a t-shirt. Here. These should fit. Kaito accepted the clothes like they were made of gold, clutching them to his chest. Thank you. Really. I'll wash them and return them and pay for the protein powder. Kaito Hayashi, right? Kaito's head snapped up so fast he nearly lost his towel. You know my name? Something flickered across Ren's face. Amusement, maybe? You're in the photography club. I've seen your work. He tilted his head slightly. You have a good eye for composition. Terrible sense of self-preservation apparently, but good eye. Heat flooded Kaito's cheeks, and not from embarrassment this time. Ren had noticed him? Had seen his photography? He'd submitted pieces to the club gallery on a whim, never imagining that Ren Takahashi had actually looked at them. I'll let you get dressed, Ren said, moving toward the door. And then we should talk. That sounded ominous. 5 minutes later, Kaito emerged from the bathroom wearing Ren's clothes, which smelled impossibly good, like cedar and something crisp he couldn't identify, and found Ren sitting at his desk, scrolling through his phone. Sit, Ren said, gesturing to the bed. Kaito perched on the edge, his ruined clothes bundled in his lap, feeling like he was about to receive the world's most awkward lecture. Instead, Ren said, I need a favor. Kaito blinked. A favor? You said you'd pay me back. Ren set down his phone and fixed Kaito with that intense gaze that had made him the subject of countless campus fantasies. I'm calling it in. Okay. Kaito said slowly, his mind racing through possibilities. Clean Ren's room for a month? Carry his equipment? Donate a kidney? What do you need? Ren was quiet for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. Then, I need you to be my boyfriend. The world tilted sideways. Your, what? Boyfriend? Fake boyfriend, Ren clarified, though that didn't clarify anything at all. For 1 week. Kaito's brain short-circuited. This was a prank. Hidden cameras. He was being punked. That was still a thing, right? I don't understand, he managed weakly. Ren sighed, running a hand through his hair in a gesture that was far too attractive for Kaito's current mental state. My family is persistent about my love life, or lack thereof. They've decided that since I'm in my final year, I need to settle down and stop wasting my youth being antisocial. He said the last part with air quotes and a grimace. My mother has been sending me profiles of suitable matches for 3 months. My sister keeps trying to set me up with her friends. It's gotten out of hand. So you want to? Kaito's voice trailed off, unable to complete the thought. Tell them I'm seeing someone. Bring you to family dinner this weekend. Let them meet my boyfriend, so they'll finally back off. Ren met his eyes steadily. 1 week. Then we stage a mutual amicable breakup and you're free. This was insane. This was the most insane thing anyone had ever proposed to Kaito, and he'd once had a roommate who tried to keep a raccoon as a pet. Why me? Kaito asked, because that was the question burning in his mind. You could ask anyone. Someone you actually know, or... Because you owe me a favor, Ren said simply. And because you're already here, covered in my protein powder, wearing my clothes. It's convenient. He paused. Also, you're exactly the type my family would believe I'd date. Kaito didn't know whether to be flattered or insulted by that. What type is that? Cute. Creative. The kind of guy who'd run from his friends because he's too shy for a blind date. Ren's lips quirked up at the corner. They'll eat it up. Cute. Ren Takahashi had just called him cute, and Kaito's brain was melting out of his ears. I'm not good at acting, Kaito protested weakly, even as part of him, the part that had spent 6 months admiring Ren from afar, was screaming at him to say yes. You don't have to be good at it. Just show up, hold my hand, laugh at my jokes. Basic boyfriend stuff. Ren leaned forward slightly. Come on, Hayashi. 1 week. That's all I'm asking. You'd be saving me from months of my mother's matchmaking torture. Kaito looked down at the clothes in his lap, his chocolate-soaked evidence of the world's worst hiding spot, and then back at Ren, who was watching him with those impossibly dark eyes. This was a terrible idea. The worst idea. Nothing good could come from fake dating his crush, from spending a week pretending to be close to someone who would never see him that way for real. But Kaito had never been good at making smart decisions. Okay, he heard himself say. 1 week. The smile that spread across Ren's face should have been illegal. Perfect. Ren stood and extended his hand. Let's establish some ground rules, boyfriend. Kaito took his hand, trying not to think about how warm it was, how perfectly it fit against his own. He was so screwed. 6 days. It had been 6 days of playing Ren's boyfriend, and Kaito was losing his mind. It started simple enough, meeting Ren after classes, walking across campus hand in hand while curious eyes followed them. Ren's fingers laced through his like it was the most natural thing in the world, his thumb occasionally brushing across Kaito's knuckles in a way that sent electricity racing up his arm. You're tense, Ren murmured during one of their practice walks. Relax. We're supposed to be comfortable with each other. Comfortable. Right. As if Kaito could ever be comfortable when his heart threatened to burst out of his chest every time Ren touched him. But the worst part, the absolutely devastating part, was that Ren was good at this. Too good. The coffee dates where Ren would reach across the table to brush a crumb from Kaito's lip, his fingers lingering just a second too long. The study sessions where Ren sat close enough that Kaito could feel his body heat, could smell that cedar scent that haunted his dreams now. The way Ren would text him good morning and good night, adding little details that felt too personal to be fake. Asterisk saw a cat on campus today. Looked grumpy. Reminded me of you when you first wake up. Asterisk. Kaito had stared at that text for 20 minutes, his chest aching with something dangerously close to hope. And now, tonight, the final act. Family dinner. You look terrified, Ren observed as they stood outside an upscale restaurant in the city. He adjusted Kaito's collar with careful fingers, his touch setting Kaito's skin on fire. They're not that bad. Well, my sister is a nightmare, but she means well. What if I mess up? Kaito's voice came out smaller than he intended. What if they can tell it's fake? Ren's hand settled on his shoulders, grounding him. Then we sell it better. His dark eyes held Kaito's, intense and unwavering. Trust me? Kaito nodded, not trusting his voice. Good. Ren's hand slid down to capture his, their fingers intertwining with practiced ease. "Let's do this, boyfriend." The dinner was a whirlwind. Ren's mother was elegant and sharp-eyed, asking questions that felt like gentle interrogations. His father was quieter but observant, watching the way Ren touched Kaito with something approving in his expression. And his sister Miyuki was exactly as advertised, a force of nature who seemed determined to extract every embarrassing detail about their relationship. "So how did you two meet?" Miyuki asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Kaito opened his mouth but Ren beat him to it. "He broke into my room." Kaito nearly choked on his wine. "It's not as bad as it sounds," Ren continued smoothly, his hand finding Kaito's thigh under the table, steadying him. "He was hiding from some friends, ended up in my room by accident. Made quite the impression." Covered in protein powder, Kaito added weakly, earning a delighted laugh from Miyuki. "That's adorable," Ren's mother said, smiling warmly. "Love finds us in the strangest ways." Well, the word hit Kaito like a physical blow. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of conversation and stolen glances. Ren played his part perfectly, the attentive boyfriend who listened when Kaito spoke, who touched him casually and often, who looked at him like he was something precious. It was torture. Beautiful, exquisite torture. They were saying their goodbyes when disaster struck. "Ren?" Everyone turned. A tall man approached their group, his expression carefully neutral, but Kaito saw the way Ren's entire body tensed beside him. "Daichi," Ren said flatly. The air turned arctic. Kaito didn't need an introduction to know who this was. The ex-boyfriend Ren had mentioned only once in passing with a tone that suggested the breakup hadn't been clean. "I heard rumors you were seeing someone," Daichi said, his eyes sliding to Kaito with something cold and assessing in them. "Didn't believe it. You always said relationships were a distraction from your work." "People change," Ren replied, his voice tight. "Do they?" Daichi's smile was cruel. "Or are you just proving a point? He's cute, I'll give you that. Very different from your usual type." Kaito felt the words like a slap. Different. Code for not good enough, not sophisticated enough, not enough. "That's enough." Ren's voice cut through the tension like a blade. His arm wrapped around Kaito's waist, pulling him close in a gesture that was unmistakably possessive. "You don't get to talk about him. You don't get to talk to him. We're done here." But Daichi wasn't finished. "When this little experiment falls apart, and it will, you know where to find me." Something in Kaito snapped. Maybe it was the week of pent-up emotions, maybe it was the dismissive way Daichi looked at him, or maybe it was the fact that he was tired of being seen as less than. "He won't," Kaito said, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. "Because unlike you, I actually care about him. Not his achievements, not his reputation. Him." Ren's sharp intake of breath was audible. Daichi's expression darkened, but before he could respond, Ren was already guiding Kaito away, his family following with hasty goodbyes. They didn't speak until they were in Ren's car, the city lights blurring past as he drove. The silence was suffocating, heavy with unspoken words. "That was," Ren started. "I'm sorry," Kaito interrupted. "I shouldn't have said that. I overstepped, I made it weird, The car swerved to the side of the road, stopping abruptly. Ren turned to face him, his expression raw and open in a way Kaito had never seen. "You were incredible," Ren said, his voice rough. "The way you stood up to him, the way you—" He stopped, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Kaito, I need to tell you something." Kaito's heart was pounding so hard he could barely breathe. "What?" "This week." "It hasn't been," Ren's jaw clenched. "I haven't been acting. Not really. Not with you." The world stopped spinning. "What are you saying?" Kaito whispered. Instead of answering, Ren leaned across the console, his hand cupping Kaito's jaw with devastating gentleness. "Can I kiss you? For real this time?" Kaito's answer was to close the distance between them. The kiss was nothing like the chaste pecks they'd exchanged for show. This was desperate, hungry, real. Ren's hand tangled in Kaito's hair, angling his head for better access, and Kaito melted into it, into him, 6 days of tension finally finding release. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Ren pressed his forehead against Kaito's. "Tell me you feel it too," Ren murmured. "Tell me I'm not crazy." But fear crashed over Kaito like a wave. This was too good. Too perfect. Ren was caught up in the moment, in the adrenaline, in the role. Tomorrow he'd regret it. Tomorrow he'd realize Kaito was just the convenient guy who'd stumbled into his room, nothing special, nothing. "I can't," Kaito choked out, pulling away. "I can't do this. Kaito." But Kaito was already scrambling out of the car, his vision blurring with tears he refused to let fall. He ran. Again. Because apparently that was all he knew how to do. 3 days. 3 days of radio silence. 3 days of Kaito ignoring Ren's texts, calls, voicemails. 3 days of hiding in his dorm room like a coward, surviving on instant ramen and self-loathing. You're an idiot, Yuki announced, barging into his room without knocking on day 4. Takashi followed, looking equally unimpressed. Go away, Kaito mumbled from beneath his blanket fortress. No. Yuki yanked the blanket off him. We're staging an intervention. You've been moping for days, you won't tell us what happened, and apparently you're ghosting Ren Takahashi? The guy you've been mooning over for months. I wasn't mooning. You literally have his photography exhibition flyer pinned to your bulletin board, Takashi pointed out. Kaito groaned, covering his face with a pillow. It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it, Yuki said, sitting on his bed with the determination of someone who wouldn't leave until she got answers. Talk to us. And maybe it was the isolation or the ache in his chest that hadn't faded, but Kaito found himself spilling everything. The fake dating arrangement, the family dinner, Daichi, the kiss, and the terror that had sent him running. He said it was real, Kaito finished, his voice breaking. But how can it be? I'm just me. And he's Ren Takahashi. It doesn't make sense. Yuki and Takashi exchanged a look. Kaito, Yuki said gently, has it occurred to you that maybe you're exactly what makes sense to him? That maybe, Takashi added, he sees something in you that you can't see in yourself? Before Kaito could respond, there was a knock at the door. A real knock, firm and insistent. His heart stopped. I'll get it, Yuki said, but Kaito was already moving, something in his chest pulling him forward. He opened the door and there stood Ren. He looked wrecked, hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, his usual composed exterior cracked and crumbling. In his hands he held a portfolio. You've been avoiding me, Ren said, his voice rough. Yes, Kaito admitted, because what was the point of lying? Can we talk? Please? Kaito glanced back at Yuki and Takashi, who were making exaggerated go-on gestures. He stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him. I'm sorry I ran, Kaito started, but Ren shook his head. Don't apologize. He held out the portfolio. Just look at this first. With trembling hands, Kaito opened it. Photographs. Dozens of them. And they were all of him. Kaito at the photography club, concentrating on adjusting a camera. Kaito in the campus cafe, laughing at something on his phone. Kaito walking across the quad, sunlight catching in his hair. Shot after shot, each one capturing him in moments he hadn't known he was being watched. I've been photographing you for 4 months, Ren said quietly. Since the first time I saw your work in the gallery and thought, I need to know who sees the world like this. I started noticing you everywhere. The way you light up when you're passionate about something. The way you bite your lip when you're thinking. The way you care so deeply about everything and everyone. Kaito couldn't breathe. When you stumbled into my room covered in protein powder, I thought it was fate giving me a chance I'd been too scared to take on my own. Ren stepped closer. The fake dating wasn't about my family, Kaito. It was an excuse to be close to you. To have a reason to hold your hand, to learn how you take your coffee, to make you smile. Ren? Kaito's vision blurred with tears. I'm in love with you, Ren said, raw and honest. Not the convenient guy who needed to hide. Not my fake boyfriend. You, the real messy beautiful you. And I'm done pretending otherwise. The portfolio slipped from Kaito's hands as he surged forward, crashing his lips against Ren's in a kiss that was desperate and hungry and real. Ren caught him, his arms wrapping around Kaito's waist and pulling him flush against his body. I love you too, Kaito gasped between kisses. I've loved you for so long I was just scared. No more hiding, Ren murmured against his lips, walking them backward toward Kaito's door. No more running. They stumbled into the room, Yuki and Takashi had mercifully vanished, and suddenly they were falling onto the bed, a tangle of limbs and heated kisses. Ren's hands were everywhere, sliding under Kaito's shirt, mapping skin he'd only dreamed of touching. Is this okay? Ren asked, his eyes dark with want but searching Kaito's face for permission. Yes, Kaito breathed. God, yes. Please don't stop. What followed was tender and intense, a physical conversation of everything they'd been holding back. Ren took his time, learning every sound Kaito made, every touch that made him gasp. And when they finally came together completely, it felt like coming home. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets, Kaito's head on Ren's chest, listening to his heartbeat steady. So, Kaito said softly, what happens now? Ren pressed a kiss to his hair. Now we do this for real. No more fake anything. Just us. Your family is going to be insufferable when they find out we're actually together. My mother is already planning our wedding. Kaito laughed, the sound light and free. I love you. I love you too. Ren tightened his arms around him. My beautiful disaster who crashed into my life. Best worst hiding spot ever, Kaito murmured, earning a warm chuckle from Ren. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the room in gold. And for the first time in days, maybe in months, Kaito felt perfectly, completely at peace. No more hiding. No more pretending. Just them and the rest of their lives to figure out.